Welcome, Soul Family, to another episode of Awaken with Carla, podcast that empowers you to awaken your mind, nurture your body, heal your heart, and nourish your soul. I am your host, Carla, and I'm so thrilled to have you here with me today. Now, in each episode, we dive into a variety of different topics from health, wellness, spirituality, mindset, manifestation, all with the intention of guiding you towards unlocking your highest potential. Together, we'll embark on a transformative journey of self-discovery where we'll gain practical tools, inspiring insights, and personal stories that will inspire you to create positive changes in your life. Now, before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to just take a moment to show my gratitude to all of you, the amazing listeners. Your support for this podcast has been truly heartwarming. And it's incredible for me to see this community growing and thriving. And I'm so honored to be a part of this journey. As you know, one of the things that makes Awaken with Carla so special is the opportunity to learn from incredible guest speakers who are experts in their respective fields. Their wisdom and experience brings a wealth of knowledge to each episode, inspiring us all to live our best lives. So without further ado, let's get started with today's episode. I am delighted to introduce to you my guest speaker for this episode, Martin Salama. Martin is known as the architect of the Warrior Life Code. He specializes in helping people frustrated in their lives quickly shift their mind to uncover their greatness so that they can live their true potential and enjoy life. I had the privilege of diving deep into this fascinating conversation with Martin, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. In this episode, we're going to cover exactly how to get everything you want without experiencing anxiety. Martin shares some practical tools, his unique perspective, as well as some powerful techniques that can help you along the way in transforming your life in profound ways. Whether you're seeking guidance on physical health, emotional healing, spiritual awakening, or aligning your mindset for success, you're in the right place. Our intention is to provide you with the tools and inspiration that you need to create a life filled with abundance, purpose, and fulfillment. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey, and remember that the power to transform lies within you. Quick reminder before we jump in, if you're enjoying this episode, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, and download the episode, depending on wherever you're listening. So get ready to ignite your curiosity, expand your consciousness, and awaken the extraordinary that lies within you. Now let's dive into today's episode of Awaken with Carla. So welcome. Thank you so much, Martin. I appreciate you being here today. Please welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are and what do you do?
All right, cool. So my name is Martin Salama, just in case everybody likes to screw up my name. It's Salama like salami with an A. Okay. I'm known as the architect of the Warrior's Life Code. And life stands for live incredibly full every day.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you. And what I do is I help people shift their mindset from lack to abundance, or even on a deeper level, from self-conscious to self-aware.
Oh, okay. And can you sort of share how you do that? Like how do you help people through that process?
Well, so I've put together a coaching course, which goes through the steps from the beginning to the end, carefully laid out, where they start off recognizing the things that aren't working for them and admitting that they need to change them. Then they move on to cleansing those things by doing the work to change. And as it goes along, they celebrate the little victories. For example, somebody decides they want to lose 50 pounds. Do they wait until they're at 50 pounds to celebrate? No.
I mean, they shouldn't.
They shouldn't. They should be celebrating along the way when they hit the 5 pound mark, the 7 pound, whatever. And say, I can't believe I've done this and I can do more and build on that. I myself lost 65 pounds over 9 months, about 7 or 8 years ago. So it's doable.
And what sort of kept you focused and kept you on track with
Yeah.
achieving that goal? Because it's so easy to set a goal and a target for ourselves, and I think we all can appreciate that. And then
Yeah.
you're a couple of days in or you're a couple of weeks in, and all of a sudden you sort of lose that momentum and that drive and that
Yeah.
you know.
So it's part of my story, but it's really my why was strong enough that it kept me going. Your why should stand for what what hurts you,
Mhm.
right? Is it hurting you so much inside that you say, I've got to make the change?
Right.
So what hurts you? WHY, why?
Oh, I like that. I like that. The little
Thank you.
acronym
I love
to
acronyms.
remind
Life,
us.
why? You'll see, I got a bunch of them.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah,
Thank
because
you.
it's these little words that we can sort of bring up in our subconscious mind that can really help shift our perspective or move us in the right direction.
Yep.
So I think that those two are really important. I love them.
Thank you.
Um, so can you share a little bit about sort of your story and what led
Yeah.
you to doing the work that you're doing today? And, I think that's important in understanding, because a lot of the times, people get to do what they're doing from their own personal experience or their
Yeah.
own journey that then leads them to
Yeah.
maybe a career shift or changing their path. So if you could share a little bit about sort of what your story looks like that kind of led you to what you're doing today.
Sure. So, if you look at over your life, you've had defining moments. Now, when you're in them, you don't recognize that they're defining moments because you're making a decision at that moment that down the road could have unbelievable consequences, positive or negative. But you don't know that in the moment. Sometimes you do. If you make a huge decision right there and you go, okay, this is what's going to happen, it could. But most of those defining moments, you look back and you go, that was a defining moment. And I can look back now from when I was 10 years old to really what I could consider my first defining moment. And it was a tragedy that put me there.
Mm.
So when I was 10 years old, I was walking home from school with one of my four older sisters. And as we walked down the block, we saw that there was a school bus stopped right in front of our house. We didn't think much about it until we got closer. We saw that the school bus driver was standing on the sidewalk in front of our house. I'm like, okay. The next thing we see is that my mother is running out of the house, carrying my 5-year-old brother, Michael, in her arms. She
Oh,
jumps in the car and drives away. Like, what is going on? We come to find out that when Michael got off the bus, he's 5 years old. He stopped and he dropped something in the front of the bus. 5-year-old, he goes to pick it up. The bus driver didn't see him, looked out, saw there was nothing in front of him, and he drove. Yeah. Unfortunately, 4 days later, he passed away from his injuries. And as a matter of fact, in about 10 days or so, it will be the 50th anniversary of that day.
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was a defining moment for me. Why? Because here I am, I'm 10 years old. I have four older sisters, and I'm the only boy. So in my mind, I start thinking, okay, I just lost the guy we were going to set the world on fire together.
Right.
I was so happy when I got a brother. I'm like, this guy, we're going to do everything together. And just like that, he was gone. In my mind, as a 10-year-old, I'm saying, I have to carry on the legacy of the name. And I have to make sure that my parents never feel pain again. 10-year-old thinks that they can do that.
Yes. It's a big burden for a
Yeah.
little 10.
Nobody told it to me. It's me, little old 10-year-old me saying, I'm going to do what I can to help my parents get over, or they were distraught. So I have to make sure that they never feel something like that again. At that moment, I could look back now and say, at that moment, I became a people pleaser.
Right.
Because it was my job to make sure that my parents were always happy. And that led to everybody else. Because once I was trying to make my parents happy, then I was trying to make everybody else happy. I was trying to make sure that everybody would be my friend.
Right.
Right.
And
So what? Yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, I think so many people can resonate with that.
Yeah. So for me, what came with being a people pleaser? Well, number one, I took everything personally. I was a control freak and I had a very short temper. And as somebody who's a people pleaser, you want people to recognize the things you're doing and say, wow, what a great job you're doing. You're always looking for that validation, that recognition. So now imagine you start doing things and you're trying to make everybody happy, which you can't. Right. And then when things aren't going exactly as you want, you take it personally. And I was a control freak, so everything had to be just right. And when it wasn't, I had a short temper and I would lose it. I would react, basically like a nuclear reactor. And then I'd have to go back around and start apologizing to people. And most of the times those apologies were like, well, I'm sorry, Carla, but you ticked me off and you did this and this was going on. That's not an apology. That's a justification for what you're doing.
Right. Right.
So now I get married and I'm now trying to please my wife. I'm trying to please my parents. And I'm rationalizing along the way that everything I'm doing is for the greater good. So now, over the last 10 years, I've figured out that the word rationalize is really two words. And the two words are rational lies.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I just came out with recently a card deck. It's called the Warrior to Warrior card deck.
Okay. Yes. And we'll definitely be chatting a little bit more about that.
And one of the cards is about rational lies. When you think you may be doing something that goes against your values, you will rationalize all the reasons why it's okay. What you're really doing is lying to yourself that it's rational to think that. They're nothing more than rational lies. I'll give you a simple example. Okay, we were talking about weight loss before. So you wake up one morning and you go, I don't feel like exercising today. You rationalize. I was tired. I didn't get a good night's sleep, whatever. So now that you know this, now that you're aware of it, you could say to yourself, really, should I not exercise or am I telling myself a rational lie? Which to me is a reason at the moment, but eventually becomes an excuse.
Right. Right.
So
an excuse to not take ownership over our lives, really, and our goals and the things that we want for ourselves, right? We want these big things for ourselves, but when it comes to actually putting in the hard work and the dedication, we rationalize all the reasons why we don't actually take the steps and take the action and move forward.
Exactly right. So now this is my life for the next close to 40 years. This is who I was. And then in 2002, 2003, I was closing a business and my wife comes to me, she says, you know what? We got to find something to do. You got to find another business to go into, so on and so forth. I just started taking tennis and I can never find court time because all the courts are taken. I have to play at 9, 10 o'clock at night. She says, maybe we should look into opening tennis courts. Now, I'm not an athlete. Okay. But I'm like, deep down inside, I'm saying, okay, I want to make my wife happy. Here's the people pleaser again. I'm not blaming her. This is me. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's start doing that. I go, we got a lot of work to do. We got to go do a feasibility study, see if it works. We go do a feasibility study. They go, yeah, you could do 7 or 8 courts. It'll work. But if you think that that's going to be profitable for you, for all the work you put in, it's really not. You need to add other things, health club, spa, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So now this little tennis club thing became a 100,000 square foot health club and tennis club with a full gym, basketball court, pool. This is what the dream was. Wow. And now we said, okay, now we got to go out and find the land. We got to find the architect and the engineers. And then the city gets involved and says, we want to make sure you have the right parking. So you got to get civil engineers involved and all this. And it's a 5-year journey.
My goodness.
And over this 5 years, I put in over $3 million of my money and investors' money towards the day that we're going to get the okay from the city.
Right.
Now, if it happened in 2006, 2007, and I went to the bank, they would have said, here's money. They would have thrown it at me.
Of course.
As fate would have it, it was 2008. I go to the bank. It's the summer of 2008. I go, guys, I'm ready. I got all the city just gave us the approval. They go, we're not lending.
No.
What are you talking about? Well, things are slowing down. A month later, Bernie Madoff, subprime loans, the
Yes.
world turns upside down. And so does Martin Salama. Just like
Oh,
that, I was broke.
my goodness.
I stopped paying my mortgage. I stopped paying my car payments. About 2 months later, my son says, Dad, look outside. Your car's being towed. My car was being repossessed. That never happened to me before.
Mhm.
Eventually, my house was foreclosed on. Luckily, we lived in New Jersey, and there was such a backlog of foreclosures that it took a while till they finally took the house away from us. But they did.
Right. Right. My
So now you
goodness.
can imagine I'm pretty depressed.
Yes.
And
Wow.
it takes me about a year to get out of this depression. Over that time, I'm going to a little therapy, going to a little coaching and stuff like that. And I come out a year later through this thing. And thank God my family was helping me get through this. My mother, my sisters, my family like that. And I go, okay, now what do I want to do with the rest of my life? I have to start over again. And I'd been a businessman my entire life. And I thought about it and I said, you know what? The time I was the happiest was when I was involved in community events. I was a leader, fundraising and stuff like that. And people would come in and say, I don't know how much I can do. I only have a few hours. And I would show them how that little bit could mean so much to the organization. I would basically get their potential out of them. I was a life coach and I didn't even know it.
I love that.
Yeah. So I decided to go for life coaching. But before that, God had a plan for me. I had another plan. It was about 2 months before life coaching. It was my 24th wedding anniversary, which happens to fall out on the day after Valentine's Day.
Okay.
And my wife says, I'm done. I want a divorce. I'm like, I kind of knew it was coming, but I didn't want to face reality until it actually happened.
Right.
Again, now I was devastated. I'm like, what the heck? I can't catch a break. Why does everything keep happening to me? I said, okay, to me. And I said, you know what? I'm planning on going to coaching. I think this is God's way of telling me, oh, you're going to go to coaching? Let's make sure you really go in with things that you think you need to get done.
Yes.
And that first weekend of coaching, they say, you want to coach? That's great. But you got to figure out who you are first. And you don't have to stay who you think you are. You can change. And they gave us a list of books to read. And they said, read a couple of these books. And one of them was The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz.
Great book.
Fantastic book. And when I read the second agreement, don't take anything personally, I felt like he was talking directly to me and telling me a secret that everybody in my entire life was telling me. But until that minute, I wasn't ready to hear it. It was as if somebody flipped on the lights in a stadium and it was like, ha ha. I was like, wait a minute. I don't have to carry the world on my shoulders. I don't have to please everybody. I don't have to take everything personally when I don't please them.
Right. Oh, that's an important.
That started my journey.
Yeah, that's an important one to learn for sure. It's so interesting how when it's time and when we're sort of on this path and this journey where we're connected and in tune with, how we're growing and changing and evolving, that when it's time for something to happen, that the universe perfectly lines up everything in your life to make it happen, whether you're consciously aware or not, or whether you're ready for the change or not. Sometimes it just forces you into that next chapter or that next level, and you're sort of, usually in the beginning part or in that beginning first few part of that stage, you're sort of left figuring out like what is going on, but you then quickly realize, okay, this is change. I need to embrace this. Ready to step. It's time to step out of my comfort zone and do all those things that is required of you in order to fully embody and embrace the change that is coming.
Exactly. And we talked about it earlier. It's admitting the things that aren't working for you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And say, okay, for example, so now I finished coaching. I finished life coach training and I'm just newly divorced. And I become a divorce recovery coach. And what had happened is right after I finished coaching, I had just gotten divorced. And I put on Facebook because I was on a group. They said, oh, you're going to market yourself on Facebook. Make sure all your information is correct. So I went on there. I was like, oh, I'm divorced. The next day, I get a Facebook message from an old friend of mine. And she says, Martin, now that you're divorced, are you ready to start dating? I'm like, but Kelly, you're married. She says, no. I'm your matchmaker. I'm like, what? What is this, Fiddler on the Roof? So I come from a very small Sephardic Jewish community here in Brooklyn, New York. And we're very close-knit. And she says, look, when there are singles out there and they're having trouble, or they just got divorced and they're moving forward, they need someone to help them through this. I'm like, okay. So she goes, you think you're ready to date? I said, I don't know. I'm just newly divorced. But I've been through coaching for about a year, coach training.
Right.
So she gets on the phone. We could start talking for about an hour. And she says, oh my God, I've never met a man so well put together after their divorce. I said, I guess it's the coaching. She goes, that's what you should coach on. I was like, wow. So I started being a divorce recovery coach.
Hmm.
And I did that for a few years. And then one day I looked in the mirror and I was the heaviest I ever was. Because I wasn't making a lot of money as a coach yet. And I had a dead end job. I was going to work at 7 and I was coming home at 7.
Oh my.
And I knew that there was no room for up the ladder in this place. They made it very clear to me.
Right.
So I was like, okay. So I let all those things get to me. And I said, I can't afford to be coached. But what I learned now is I couldn't afford not to be coached, because getting coached is an investment. It's not a cost.
Yes.
And a friend of mine was on Facebook and he said, look, he was just like out there saying, hey guys, I lost this ton of weight and I've been using this 30-minute workout video at home. I'm like, oh, I could do that. I don't have to buy a membership. I don't have to leave and figure out how to get there and back and whatever. I can wake up a little earlier, work out in my living room with the video and do it. I got to tell you, Carla, those first couple of weeks, they were a killer. And I was following the modified lady.
Right.
And I was like doubled over. I can't do this. But my why was strong enough. I said, I've gained too much weight. I'm starting to wheeze if I go up a staircase. I got to figure this out. So I pushed through. And like I said, over 9 months, I lost 65 pounds.
My goodness.
But I was also reading better and eating better and listening to better things and allowing myself to be coached now. I found ways to get coached. And I realized I made a shift from self-conscious to self-aware. I talked about that earlier.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Which is another card in my deck. I'm a, what can I say? Shameless plugs.
Oh, I love it. I'm all about these cards. So I love it.
I'll read just a little bit of it. Self-conscious comes from a place of negative energy, guilt, conflict, and doubt. Self-consciousness is more outward directed. It's being more concerned with what others are thinking of you and how the situation is going to affect you. You probably react to uncomfortable situations instead of respond. Self-awareness comes from a place of positive energy, acceptance, contentment, self-assuredness. Self-awareness is more inward facing. You have an accurate and realistic understanding of how you're responding to situations and how you feel about things. So I made that shift. And people think about it and they don't realize how important that is.
How did you make that shift?
Well, it started with me starting to do all these things, working out, reading better things, and allowing my mindset to say, take out the word I can't to I can, or how can I?
Right.
Because I can't is nothing more than a cop-out.
Yes, agree.
So you figure out other ways to get it done. You could look at any situation and say, it's a problem or it's an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to you to decide what to do. And one of my mentors, her name is Genevieve Davis. She writes this book on magic. And we're not talking about Harry Potter magic, that you have the magic within you to change. Mm-hmm. She says, the world is as you see it. So why not see it with opportunity and positivity?
Oh, I love that. I love that. And
Yeah.
it's so true because I mean, we are energy beings and everything around us has an energy frequency and we resonate and vibrate at different energy frequencies. And the way everything's sort of interconnected between the power of our mind and sort of the use of our language and the use of how we command our energy and direct our energy, how all of that coming together is what actually creates the reality that we live. And
Right.
so for those who are sort of looking at their life and looking around and seeing that maybe they're not happy with certain aspects of their life, it's an opportunity to sort of reflect inwards to understand what is going on in the internal world, because
Mhm.
that is what's actually showing up and manifesting for you in your external world.
Exactly correct. You couldn't have put it, I could not have put it any better. Fantastic. So now I went from why is everything happening to me,
Mhm.
right? To I can see how things are happening for me. Or even better, I learned this recently and I've incorporated it into my own life. Things are happening through me.
I like that one.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like that.
Eventually, I've got to remember who said it to me, and give them credit. But for now, I can't.
It'll come to you one day.
Yeah. So now I let things happen through me. So now I lost 65 pounds. I'm feeling great about myself. I now, for the first time, like myself and love myself. And as a man, we don't even look at those things.
Right.
But
Right.
I had gone through the world. I had a couple of defining moments. My brother,
Yes.
2008, my divorce, the weight. These were all milestones, and I had to either learn from them or whatever, roll up and die. And for the first 40 years, I allowed my own narrative of I have to be a people pleaser to rule my life.
Right.
So now I'm on that path to do things differently. So I'm doing things like exercising every day, reading great things, and I was meditating. And I'm ADHD. Could you imagine a guy ADHD meditating even for 10 minutes with guided meditation? When is this going to be over? How do people get their mind to relax for 10 minutes?
Yes, yes. I can imagine it being a very difficult task or challenge, but
Right. But I
um,
persisted. And one day I had a download of information in this 10 minutes. And when I finished my 10-minute meditation, I wrote for 2 hours. And
wow.
what it was I came up with like my own manifesto, as it were. But it was really my coaching program of I wanted to show people how I loved my life and how they could love their life too. And I created the life acronym, live incredibly full every day.
I love that. And again, it just goes to show that it's at the sort of most challenging points in our life where we can actually, and you mentioned it earlier, we don't always necessarily know it in the moment or can appreciate it in the moment, but it is those big sort of catalyst events in our life that is what actually creates the change for
Right.
us to do something bigger, more fulfilling, more rewarding with our life. And
Right.
you
Right.
know, if any one of us can reflect back at our life and see different sort of points and times where maybe the universe was trying to shift us,
Mm-hmm.
and what, depending on where we were on our journey or where we are on our journey, whether we're listening to those signs or paying attention to those signs and embracing the change, or are we resisting it by shutting down that sort of ability to get
Yeah.
those downloads or get that information, which we all have access to. It's just
Yeah.
a point in our journey are we that we can take those downloads, appreciate them, and sort of embrace them and put them into action.
Exactly right. And you know what? As a control freak, I also had to recognize that not everything's in my control. I had
Right.
no control over the financial crisis in
Exactly.
2008, just like I had no control over COVID the last 2-3 years,
Right.
right? Which is
Exactly.
also part of my story, which I'll get into in a minute. But Now that I had this renewed sense of self-like and self-love, I started dating more. My friend Kelly would call me up and say, okay, I got someone for you to go out with. And I'd go out on these dates and I would basically interview the women about their values, because I learned about values in coaching and how important it was. And I never understood them before. And what I learned was that my first marriage, my wife and I had completely different values. And we were in a codependent relationship. And I take my blame and she has to take hers, which whether she does or doesn't, it's not my business. But in the beginning, as a people pleaser, it's, oh, it's all my fault. No, we both had to do it. And what I was doing with coaching around divorce was explaining to people that if you don't change who you are and what you're looking for, you'll marry the same person again in a different body.
Absolutely.
So now I'm dating and I go out on these dates. I'm like, nope. They're not hitting the numbers. They're not checking the boxes. And one day she calls me up. She goes, I found somebody that you have to take out. I'm like, okay, Kelly, tell me about it. She starts telling me. I go, I don't know. She goes, well, you know Ralph and Cookie? I'm like, yeah, Ralph's friends with my sister, Linda, who's 10 years older than me. And Cookie's friends with my sister, Diane, who's 7 years older than me. She goes, yeah, their daughter. I'm like, their daughter? How old is she? You know, well, she's 15 years younger than you. I'm like, well, if she wants to go out with me, I'm in.
Right.
We go out on the date and she's checking off every box. Go out on another date. The boxes keep getting checked and everything is aligning. Now, a month into this relationship, I said, I got to tell you something. Her name is Sarita. Sarita, I got to tell you something. And I don't need to hear it from you, but I want to tell it to you. I'm falling in love with you because I love who I see. And I love that you see me as I am and you're not trying to change me.
So
2 weeks later, she told me she loved me and we've been married for almost 5 years.
Oh, that's a lovely story.
Thank you. So now COVID comes, 2020. And it's March 2020 and they go, okay, we're going to be shut down for 3 weeks. It was much more than 3 weeks, right?
Oh, yes.
So now it comes to May and we're still shut down. So my wife and I look at each other one Sunday morning. We go, let's take the kids and drive to the city, New York City. I live in Brooklyn. Let's go to New York City. Now, have you ever been to New York City?
I have. Yes.
Yes. So what's it like to drive straight up 6th Avenue?
Oh, I mean, I just think of New York City as just chaos, always, all the time. It's like a parking lot when it's
exactly. You're lucky if you can make the next traffic light.
Yes.
So this Sunday morning, we drive to the city and we drive straight up 6th Avenue without missing a light.
I can imagine.
There's no cars. It's like next to no cars on the street. We get up all the way to like the 80s or 90s. We turn back around. We go down 5th Avenue, right down past Museum Mile. We stop. The kids get out, take pictures. And I look at Sarita and I go, I don't understand. What's going on here? What is everybody so worried about? You know, stay in your car. You know, don't go near people. Big deal. You can still go out a little bit.
Yes.
And I realized that the last 12 years of my life had prepared me for anything to come up. And I was ready to move forward through it. So I got into Facebook, even COVID, whatever it was I could do. Got into Facebook. I said, guys, I get it. I know why you're worried. I get it. I was worried too. So let me show you how to go from being a worrier to a warrior. Just in case my Brooklyn accent screwed that up. And I said, and that's where the warrior's life code came up. And the warrior part is for people who have gone through adversity and come out the other side stronger. It's that simple.
I can definitely relate to that. I think, and a lot of people can relate to that. You know, we all are faced with different challenges in our life, and some of these challenges really test us and really, make us go on that inward journey, on that awareness journey, and force us at times to look at, sort of the darker sides of us and the darker parts of us. And, the ones that sort of make it on the other side or come out of it on the other side, I think they have a very special message that they often want to share with the world, and how they survived or overcame that challenge. And I think that is important because that's how we can help others along the way on their own similar journey. Because at the end of the day, everyone has challenges. And yes, your challenges may be different than my challenges, but at the end of the day, there are individuals that have similarities and there are situations that, are very similar. So helping each other along the way is so important and so key.
Yeah. And when I went back to the ideas of when I started to be coached again, what I love about coaching as a coach and being coached is that coach is there to support you, right? Be objective and non-judgmental.
Yes.
Right. Whereas if you go to your family members, even if they're not judgmental, you have an emotional attachment and you think they're being judgmental.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And what I also love about it is coaches could be accountability partners. Right. So I came up with this thing called the power of the cycle of A's and how to get everything you want without anxiety or worry.
Right.
Right.
That's something that I want to pick your brain on.
Yeah, I know. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, there's a lot of anxiety in the world nowadays, and it's actually a term that we use so loosely nowadays. But I think so many of us have these big goals and these big aspirations for ourselves and for our lives, but far too often we have a lot of anxiety that comes up with seeking those goals or starting on that path of achieving those goals. So you mentioned that there is the ability to achieve anything we want without getting to that level of anxiety, and I'd love if you could share how that's possible and
all right,
give us some tips along the way that we can implement into our own.
Well, guess what? It's a set of cards in my deck.
I love it.
So can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So you see it's a cycle. Okay. It's a circle. So the cycle of A's is 3 A's. And it takes the law of attraction to another level. People think, oh, the law of attraction, it doesn't work. Well, yeah, it's not about just thinking about what you want and then all the world just comes up. There's more to it than that.
Of course.
Right. And then they go, okay, law of attraction. Blah, blah, blah. No, if you think of it that way, then that's how it's going to be served. That's how it's going to happen to you. For example, when I was getting divorced, before I was getting divorced, I used to say to myself, I don't want to be divorced. I don't want to be divorced. I don't want to be divorced. What the world heard was divorce. So it gave me what I asked for. Right. And to be honest now, looking back, that day when she told me I want a divorce, other than our 4 children, it's probably the greatest gift she ever gave me. Because it told me, Martin, you've got to figure out what's going on. You've got to take a look inside yourself and say, what did you contribute to this marriage, good and bad? It doesn't matter what she contributed, good and bad, right? What are you going to do to be a better you? Not for her, not for the kids, for you. And that's where the coaching started to really take hold. So now, talked about this. So now I said, okay, great. Now I understand the cycle of A's. I understand the law of attraction. So level 1, law of attraction is think about what you want. So the cycle of A's, the first one is ask. Ask the universe, ask God, ask whoever it is your higher power for what you want. Okay, but you can't stop there. The next one is act. You got to do the work to get it. Whatever it is. Oh, I want $1 million. How are you going to get $1 million? Oh, I want to be on a TED Talk. What are you going to do to get on a TED Talk? Oh, this is what I want to find the right mate for me. The perfect match, whatever it is. What are you going to do? Make a list of the things you were looking for in that person. And when you start looking for that person, if that's the case, they'll start showing up. It's like you buy a new car. And then all of a sudden, you see that car all over the place.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. It's like, wait a minute. I thought I was the only one that drove this car. It's the same thing because now it's in your mindset. It's there. But here comes the last one. And this is the hardest one. It's called attitude. You have to have a mindset of, I don't care about the outcome. I'm not emotionally attached to the outcome, because when you are, you're giving out to the universe that idea of lack. That's want. Desire is deeper. That's where you say, okay, if it doesn't come, this is the world, the universe, God telling me I got to make a shift. I've got to make a whatever it is, and pivot a little bit. And don't say, oh my God, it's happening to me again. No. Why is it happening? Maybe God has a bigger plan for you and you're just not ready to see it.
Exactly.
So now, once you're in that cycle, it perpetuates itself. That's why I made it into the circle like I did.
Right.
Right? Because ask, act, attitude. You're going around. It's all happening. You keep asking and you start doing the work and you just say, okay, it's going to happen. And if it doesn't, okay. And then you go on. So,
I love that.
Thank you.
One of the things that I sort of teach my students is that there's no such thing as failure, that it's only feedback. It's only an opportunity or a lesson for us to take any lessons that we learned from that experience, from taking that action, from taking, or achieving that goal or accomplishing that dream. If it didn't quite pan out exactly how we expected it to, or based on the outcomes we had in mind, it's an opportunity for us to observe the experience, look at the lessons, so that we can do it again, and do it again with a different perspective, do it again with,
Right.
a new lesson, do it again with a different view. And so trying to get over that idea that if something doesn't happen exactly as we planned, that it's a failure.
Right, exactly. And that brings in the third agreement. Make no assumptions.
Yes.
Which is really, I go a little deeper, have no expectations. When I would go out on these people would say to me, well, what do you expect? I said, well, if I give myself a high expectation and she doesn't hit it, then I'm going to be disappointed. If I give a low expectation, then nothing, what's going to come. Even if she doesn't hit that, I'll be disappointed. So I said, I go in with no expectations.
Right.
Right. Because then I won't be disappointed. I might go through it and say, it's not right for me. So I got to find someone else, go down the road.
Right. Right. I love that. I think those are the two big lessons that, we can sort of take away from our conversation, but certainly and help us sort of implement into our life, is just really hold no attachment to, the outcome. Yep. And as you said, not to sort of take anything personally, and to just have no expectations really at the end of the day. Right.
Right, because then you won't be disappointed when it doesn't happen. And as you said, the failure is not really a failure. To me, it's a shift and pivot. You got to make a new change.
Exactly. Exactly. I love that. So how, maybe if you could share like some, I think naturally, self-care is part of it has been part of your journey, and it's been part of, my journey, and I think for so many others. But how can one balance, that sort of self-care and those self-care practices to keep us grounded, to keep us sort of centered and connected to ourselves and our higher self, so that becomes sort of the guiding compass. Yeah. But finding that balance with, again, that self-care, but then how we can achieve our goals and achieve our desires, because at times it can be difficult to balance all of that out.
Yeah. So first I want to say self-care is not selfish.
Mm-hmm.
It's self-love.
Yes.
Okay. And one of the things that I it's a little advanced on it's not in my course or in my cards, but something I coach people around is taking their day and breaking it into 4 quadrants. Now, they don't have to be equal quadrants, but you have 24 hours in a day. So if you want to make it equal, say, okay, 6, 6, 6, 6, but it doesn't work out that way, because you might want 7 or 8 hours of sleep. That's quadrant number one. Okay. Quadrant number two is me time. That could be for reading. That could be for exercising. That could be for self-reflection. That could be for whatever it is. And you say, this is my time. Okay. And for me, and that includes waking up in the morning, write down in my journal three things I'm grateful for. I pray. I say I live incredibly full every day. I go exercise. These are the things that get me going through the day. That's all in the me time. Yeah. Then you have another quadrant, work time. Okay. Now, if you have a job that you love, even better. But that's the time that you're going to focus on work. And nothing can come in to take it away. And the last one is family time. Now, it could be family and friends if you're single or whatever. Family, fun, whatever F you want to use. And now you take it every day and you go, okay, if someone wants to schedule a meeting with me at 8 p.m., if I know my wife's not going to be home by then, great. If she is, then I say, okay, I can't do it. I can't do 8 p.m., but I can do 7 p.m. because it works out into my schedule. And that's the first step of self-care. You know, for me, about 7 or 8 months ago, my wife said to me, I'm going to the manicurist. Want to come? I'm like, me? Go to the manicurist? Okay. I said, you know what? I'll come because I want to spend some time with you. Okay. Now I get a manicure every 2 weeks.
It's good me time.
It's me time. It's self-care time. I haven't broken down for the pedicure yet, but I do get manicures.
Oh, pedicures are even better.
All right. I got to try it. I don't think anybody wants to look at my toes. That's the problem.
Oh, but it keeps them nice, you know.
Listen,
so that
as self-aware as I am, when it comes to my toes, I'm self-conscious.
So tell me a little bit about what helped you sort of develop your self-care practice. Like what were things that, you know, you felt really worked for you and really helped you along in your journey, and what helped you stay committed to it? Because I think sometimes a lot of people will, you know, set out to, you know, build a new daily routine for themselves, or, you know, allocate and earmark all of these quadrants for themselves. But how can they honor that quadrant of time, or whatever it is that they sort of set for themselves?
Well, there's another great book. It's called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. You know that book?
No, I haven't.
So he talks about the more you do something, the greater the effect will be. It's like compound interest for anybody out there who wants to understand compound interest. If you take $1,000 and put it in the bank and you let it sit there for a year at 5%, at the end of the year, you have $1,050. Now, if you let it sit there for another year at $1,050, you're now paying 5% on $1,050, not on the first 1,000. So it compounds interest. Just this quick little thing there. But so now that same thing, it's about persistence and about you staying within yourself and changing the habits that don't work and coming up with habits that do work. For example, making sure that I exercise at least 5 times a week. And for me, I got to do it in the morning. You know, if something comes up in the morning and I can't do it, by 3, 4 o'clock, I'm like, I didn't exercise today, but I can't do it now. I start to rationalize that I can't do it. So I make sure that it's in my me time in that morning routine.
So, I mean, the key takeaway is just making sure you carve that time for yourself and make it a non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable.
And really set those hard boundaries around that time that you're using to invest and giving back to yourself, which, as you mentioned, when you carve out that time for yourself, then life can really start to change and shift in so many different ways without us really fully even being aware of it.
Yeah, I set up with my clients non-negotiables. I set up with myself when I was dating non-negotiables. I started dating. I was in my late 40s, early 50s. What the top of the list is, I don't want any more kids.
Right.
I have grandchildren. I have 8 beautiful grandchildren now. Thank God. I don't want to start bringing up my son with my grandson.
Right. Right.
So that was a non-negotiable. And I do that with my clients. What are the things that are negotiable and not negotiable? And stick to your guns. This is where you stop the people pleasing. Because somebody says, I need you to do this, but it's in my non-negotiables. You go, sorry, I can't do it. And if it hurts them, okay. As long as you're not physically hurting them or mentally hurting them, or blah. If they're like, oh, I'm really pissed. All right, be pissed. It doesn't serve me as well. It's a one-way street. I'm not interested in one-way streets. I'm interested in win-wins.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I love that. Win-wins, because that's what it's all about, right? Is making sure that both people walk away feeling like they've gotten something out of that connection or interaction.
Okay. Yeah.
What tools or techniques do you sort of offer or coach your clients on, like overcoming fear and maybe that sort of self-doubt that we all kind of go through when it comes to
so I have a part of my course. I have a part of my course that helps people to stop reacting to things. Okay. And a lot of the reaction comes from fear. Okay. That's where the emotion comes from eventually. Anger comes from fear most of the time.
Right.
Whether people want to recognize it or not. So when I was a kid, or my children were kids growing up, and the firemen would come into the school and they would teach fire safety, they'd say, children, there's 3 words you have to remember in case of a fire. I don't know if they taught it in Canada, but here in America, they were stop, drop, and roll.
Oh, yes.
Stop what you're doing, drop to the ground, and roll away from the fire. So I took that idea, and I changed it to stop, think, and respond. Okay. Stop before you react. Just stop. Every time you react, it doesn't serve you. So start thinking, I'm going to stop. Now think, am I taking it personally? Is it something I'm fearing? Is it something that's going on deep inside? And then respond instead of react. Now I give them a scorecard because it doesn't happen right away. I wish it would, but it takes practice and it takes muscle memory to change the way you do things so that you can be better at it.
Yes, absolutely. But as you said, it's like a muscle, right? So when you do it a little bit at a time, you eventually build that muscle and it becomes second nature. So it's important to, in anything that we do, that we start off taking one step at a time and recognizing that it's each of those little small steps that compound into something bigger over time.
Exactly.
So, okay.
Stop, think, and respond. I used the traffic light.
I love it. Oh, it's a perfect analogy.
Exactly. Yield. Slow down. Yeah. Stop. Now think about it a little bit before you run into traffic. Yes,
exactly.
Because that's what you're doing. You're running into traffic when you do it. Like you're running into a building. You're running into the movie theater screaming fire.
Yeah. Or when we're reacting to everything that's happening in our lives, like we're being triggered constantly, and just if we're in that reaction mode, then you're right. It is like just charging directly into traffic.
Exactly right.
Not realizing what we're going to be faced with.
So basically, you can tell I've covered many of the things in my cards, and we've only done a few of the cards, but there's a lot of other things in the cards. So it's a process as you go through it. And we talk about fear. I talk about fear. You could be afraid to do something, but 9 times out of 10, you have to do it anyway. So take the fear and say, I'm going to work with it. I'm going to accept it and do it anyway. Yes. And then look at the results and say, that wasn't so bad. Did I die?
Right. As long as you're not dead, then you're good, right?
Right. It's like last year, not this past summer, the summer before, I had on my list of the bucket list to jump out of a plane. Ooh. And finally I did it. And people said, were you afraid? I said, not 1 second. I was exhilarated the entire time I was screaming. I live incredibly full every day, the whole way down.
I love it. I love it. That's so wonderful. That's actually something that's on my bucket list. And this is the year that I will be checking it off. So I'm looking
Great.
forward to it as
Do
well.
yourself
Yeah.
a favor. I mean, I was tandem and they recorded me the whole way. Get the recording.
Oh,
Pay the
yeah.
extra couple of bucks and get the recording.
Yes. I could see that recording being worthwhile, or that investment being worthwhile.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah.
Love it. So, Martin, tell me or tell us where we can find those cards, where we can find you, more information about yourself, like
Yep.
website. I'm sure you're on social media and all those
I'm
platforms
on
as well.
social media, but the best way to probably get to me is connectwithmartin.com.
Love it.
Now, when you go there, you can buy my cards. You could buy my book, which is coming out very soon. Maybe by the time this is released, it'll come out. You could also get free gifts like a worksheet on the cycle of A's.
Oh, love it.
Or how about this? About a year ago, I was on a summit for parents. And the host of the summit said, "Can you come up with a free gift for the parents?" I said, "Yeah, I could come up with something. 7 tips you must teach your children to be abundant warrior mindset." And I took the letter warrior and broke it down into another acronym. So I said, you know what? That's not enough. Because I made them a 7-page thing for them to read. I said, I got to give something to the kids too. So we turned it into a coloring book.
Oh, cute.
And then the parents are saying, I want a coloring book too. So you can get my coloring book, the one for the adults or the kids, whichever one you want. And you could also click on a link to make an appointment to see me. You could go to my website. All there on connectwithmartin.com.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. I'll be sure to add that into the notes so it's easier for everyone.
Right. And go and download the coloring book for yourself.
Yes, I will. I will. Thank you for letting me know that you have it on your website. I'll be definitely downloading. I love those adult coloring books. I think it's so therapeutic and it's just very grounding. And
Can I tell you a secret?
of course,
It's okay to color outside the lines.
oh, I know. I'm usually in the line. I love it. So I have just one final question for you. Maybe it's actually a message that maybe you want to pull from the cards, but my question or my sort of, where I wanted to go with next is, what advice can you give someone, or maybe pull from your card, maybe a card to leave us with a final message, for individuals who might be struggling with,
How about this? You give me a number between, well, we did a little bit of those. So let's say between the number 12 and 30.
and 30.
Just pick a number between 12 and 30.
27.
27. Let's look at card 27. The Abundant Warrior Within. This is the card. This is the coloring book. And it's W, wisdom, seek wisdom. A, act, ask, and attitude. R, realization, be content, I have everything. R, recognize, gratitude, be grateful for everything you have in your life. Imagination, think big. O, optimism, find positive in everything. And R, be flexible and have an open mind.
Wow. I love that. I mean, you certainly can't make that up. We were just talking about the coloring book, and there you go. You pulled out a card that is in reference to that coloring book. I
Law
love
of attraction.
It's exactly law of attraction, the synchronicities, the way the universe all sort of works and makes everything happen.
That's
Again,
right.
it's always happening for us or
Through
in
you.
your
Happening through you.
us to create a wonderful story or a wonderful experience that we can live. So I love that. Thank you again so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time having this conversation with me. I learned a lot, and there was definitely some really good key takeaways that I can use from this conversation, implement to my life, and hopefully the audience can also take some key things away from our discussion implement it into their life and hopefully, have some change in their life, which is
Great.
ultimately what this is all about, right? Is to
And here's
create that.
another little one for you. Smile all the time. Go out and make somebody laugh every day. And when you make them laugh, tell them, thank you for filling my quota to make somebody laugh today.
Oh, I love that. Yes, yes. I do that often without intention. It's not usually like my top of mind, but I
Right.
do often seek out to, make someone smile and make someone sort of laugh in their day. So I love that. I love that you mentioned that. Now I'll take that away and make it as part of my sort of intention for each day.
Cool. Great.
Thank you again. I appreciate it, Martin. We'll chat.
Thank
Hopefully we'll
you.
be back again soon.
Absolutely. Love it.
Love it. Thank you for joining me in this episode of Awaken with Carla. I hope you found inspiration, guidance, and some practical tools that you can apply in your own life. As we come to an end with this episode, I just wanted to take a moment to reflect on some of the things that I learned from my conversation with her. First thing was that I learned what life stands for, the acronym that Martin had created. And life stands for live incredibly full every day. And I love that as a reminder, somewhere to put it in your room, on your wall, in your house somewhere, just to remind us each and every day how it is important to find the moments to be happy, find the moments of joy. It's all these little moments that count over the course of our life that help us to feel much more happy and feel much more fulfilled. Another thing that I enjoyed from my conversation was how Martin broke down the word rationalize. And it's interesting because that was the first time I've ever had someone break that word down for me in that way. And that, in essence, that is exactly what we do when we start to rationalize the things that are showing up in our life, or maybe why we are not taking certain action in our life. We actually start to rational and lie to ourselves. We create rational lies to ourselves that prevent us from actually taking those steps forward. And so, again, if we pair those two, it reminds us that we really need to find ways that we can live more fully and stop rationalizing all the excuses and the reasons for why we're not taking action and showing up in the world in the way that we want to, essentially. Also, for my conversation, I had a great reminder of the 4 agreements and how it's important in this journey called life for us not to take things personally. We all go through life and, again, have a variety of different experiences. And as we interact with each other, sometimes the way we express ourselves might mean that we offend someone, or vice versa, they offend us. But we have to remember that everyone's going through their own experience and has their own particular journey, and may not necessarily have the intention of creating harm or negativity in our direction and anything like that. And so as we navigate our experience and our life, that we have to remember that people are doing the best that they can with the information and the resources that they have available to us, or to them, I should say. And also not to take things personally, because the way people express themselves is from their perspective and their lens, and it may not necessarily be in alignment with how you see the world. So I hope you had some learnings from this conversation. I know that I certainly did. Please share with me in the comments below, or also send me a message if you're feeling called to, and share what are some of the things that you learned throughout this episode. And so I encourage you to continue along on this journey, and to take the knowledge and the inspiration that you're gaining from each of these episodes and integrate them into your life. That is the purpose of Me having these conversations is for me to learn and integrate some of that knowledge and wisdom into my life, but also to share this with you, the listeners. Embrace the practices and the various mindset shifts that resonate with you, and be patient with yourself as you navigate this new path that you're on. Remember that healing, self-discovery, spirituality is a lifelong pursuit. And I encourage you to keep continuing exploring, learning, and growing in your own unique way. If you have any questions, I would love to hear from you, or you'd like to share your experience. Again, I would love to hear from you. So make sure to reach out to us via my website or social media channels. And then remember that you're not alone on this journey, and that we're here to support you every step of the way. Before we wrap up, I wanted to express my deepest gratitude to Martin, our incredible guest speaker. His wisdoms and expertise certainly enriched this episode, and it's brought tremendous value into my life, and I hope it's done the same for you. Lastly, I want to thank you, our amazing listeners, for being a part of this community. Your support, your feedback, and your engagement means the world to me. Together, we're creating an incredible space for growth, connection, and transformation. And again, if you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with your family and friends, and leave me a comment or a review below or on your favorite podcasting platform. Your support means a lot to me, and it helps me on my mission to empower individuals to live life more fulfilling, authentic, and purposeful lives by helping them tap into their wisdom and their full potential. Remember that the power to awaken and live your best life lies within you. You have everything you need to manifest the dreams and create a life of purpose and fulfillment. Until next time, keep embracing the journey of self-discovery, nourishing your body, and awakening the extraordinary within you. Stay tuned for more empowering episodes of Awaken with Carla. May you find peace, love, and light on your path.